Hello and welcome to HTV. I'm Heather Ramsay and today I'm going to be interviewing some really interesting people. You were recently awarded Citizen of the Year 2021. Congratulations.
Yeah, what an honor. I was so very excited. And I have to say, I don't consider it an award for me. I consider it an award for our whole organization and the people that work there. They're the ones that do the hard work and help support everything that we do. And I'm honored to have shared it with Michael Ramsay, your father, and Salvation Army, and Colin Minions from Bread of Life and Kua Society. And what I think is so important about the award is that there were 3 social service agencies who won the awards for the 3 years, and we're all social service serving during the whole COVID period and bringing services to the community. So very important, and what an honor for all of us to be there. Yeah, I share it with all of them.
What are some of the great things you and your team have done in 2021?
Wow, we stayed open for starters, and we kept on seeing people. We never we had our doors closed, limited, but continued to provide services for clients. Women and children, and even through our drop-in center, that was a great success. It was difficult, and we had to become very innovative on how we deliver services. I think of one example, which is really fabulous, and that's in our PEACE program. So PEACE stands for Prevention, Education, Advocacy, Counseling, and Empowerment. Used to be called Children Who Witness Abuse, so we're working with kids who have witnessed abuse in their lives. And pretty hard to work remotely or via video, and we created a program whereby we had sand boxes about like this, and we put sand in and different things, and then it made a duplicate for the counselor. And then we were able to send a blanket, a tripod, a little tablet, and the sandbox. And then the child or the youth that we were working with was able to sit in their own home, and the counselor was in her office with the same thing exactly, and did the counseling with the youth and the child at the same time. Unbelievably brilliant thing to do. I said she should be publishing the work that she did. It was so good, and really let us be right in the homes working with children. That's an enormous success for us. One of the things that really stands out for me over that period of time.
ACOS recently changed its name to Sage Haven.
Yeah.
So what does Sage Haven mean, and why did you decide to change the name?
Bet. Well, one of our board members who was on the board for about a year, and he said, I just don't get your name. It doesn't mean anything to me. It doesn't resonate. Alberni Community and Women's Services, what is that exactly? And so we started to have a conversation, and the conversation kind of went, well, let's take a look at what might be more meaningful, and sat around a table and started throwing some ideas out. SAGE stands for wisdom and knowledge. And of course we know knowledge is power, and also for planting and traditional plantings. So we pull in that traditional piece of the plantings of the earth, and Haven, quite simply, is exactly what we are, a haven for the people who come to us for services. And with that we created a new logo, which is a tree, and the tree is very representative. It carries the colors from the LGBTQ2 flag, and has roots in the ground, and so the whole thing is representative. And this particular board member said, I get it and I like it. And so we're really excited about that, and we really feel that it represents who we are and what we do.
Sage Haven runs a home for people fleeing abuse. So what is involved in that?
Well, it's an emergency shelter, and it's open to women and their children who have had violence in their lives and are fleeing or seeking safe haven. There's that word again, haven. And they can come to us for an approximate 30-day period. We help them build a safety plan while they're there. We help them perhaps seek, find funding, help them seek assistance in funding, provide referrals to them for housing. People come to us sometimes just because they need to be away from their home for a period of time, and many women will return to a relationship where there is violence, and that's very, very common and normal. However, we're there for them whenever they need to come back, if that's the case. So it is a safe place for women to go, and it's a stepping stone away from a violent relationship to make sure that they're okay.
What other programs does Sage Haven run?
Well, we have a whole bunch, and I always forget something, but so we have what's called community-based victim services, and so that's where somebody has been sexually assaulted, and their court processes and their criminal proceedings, and so they'll help with help somebody navigate the court system. They'll be an advocate for them. She'll take them to the court, do a tour, introduce them to Crown Counsel, let them know what their rights are, and just to walk beside them actually as much as anything to understand that process. We have a community resource drop-in center on 3rd Avenue, which is open Monday to Friday from 9 until 4. Anybody's welcome. Again, we are a safe place for people to come, and I'm going to use the word haven again because we, see how it sort of comes through in everything that we do. But they come because they feel safe there. They're not judged, and it could be just for a friendship. It could be for a cup of coffee. It could be seeking resources and services. Somebody was in today trying to figure out how they could, without a cell phone, accept an e-transfer from a family member, and it was a very difficult process. And so we helped walk through that, helping with resources and referrals for housing. Oh, golly, no 2 days are the same. We have Wednesdays is Women's Wednesday, and believe me, they love it. They like to send the men away and say, oh no, it's Women's Wednesday, you get out of here. But we do arts and crafts and programs. So we have educational opportunities, and lots of time we just ask the clients and visitors to our center or guests, what would you like to do? What's meaningful for you, and let's see how we can help you in your programs. So we have also then Stopping the Violence counseling. And again, this is not clinical counseling, but it's a supportive counseling, what they call psychoeducational counseling. And we help these women understand what's happening in their relationship. Oftentimes, we're the first person to explain to somebody that what they're experiencing in their relationship is, in fact, abuse. So, most people think the boom, physical, that's abuse, and we all understand that. But abuse takes many, many forms, which includes perhaps withholding money, taking a cell phone away, the ability to communicate, restricting somebody to a home, psychological and emotional abuse, many, many, many forms. Hurting pets is a form of abuse, believe it or not. I heard a story once about how some child's goldfish was flushed down the toilet by dad. And now, in the grand scheme of things, I don't particularly like goldfish, but if that happened to my child's goldfish, it would be very traumatizing for me and for the child, right? So hurting pets is a big way, and often a reason why women don't leave, by the way, their homes is because they don't want to leave pets behind because they think they're going to be hurt. Stopping the Violence, then we have the PEACE program, and again I explained prevention, education, advocacy, counseling, and empowerment, and again that's a lot of play therapy. So we are doing that face-to-face again with kids. They come to us, and kids express through art and play oftentimes their feelings, and so we'll work with them, and again we explain to them that what's happening in the home is not their fault, and children oftentimes say, if I didn't do this, then mommy wouldn't be happening, or this wouldn't be happening with daddy because it's my fault. And the truth of the matter is, it's not the child's fault, right? So we help them understand that. Let's see, we have a sexual assault response program. And we work with a group of trained volunteers, so if there's a sexual assault, we have somebody available 24/7 who can actually go to the hospital and be there with a woman who's been sexually assaulted and work with the forensic nurse. Just sit sometimes quietly beside. Sometimes the woman might say, I'd like you just to hold my hand. But we have resources and information. They carry a backpack which is full of clothes, personal care items. Oftentimes, if there's a sexual assault, then the clothing that a woman goes to the hospital with will be held as evidence as part of what they do. And and we make sure that they have transportation away from the hospital, and then know what services that they can access. And of course, you asked me about the transition house, and so that's our safety shelter, our emergency shelter. And I think I've actually covered all the programs for a change and not forgotten anybody.
I understand you are building a new building soon.
Yes.
So Where is it?
Exciting. Well, let's see. We don't really talk about the location of where our housing projects are for safety reasons for the women. But you know, what I would say is it's an area that is accessible to transportation and community support. So, you know, rec center and eco center and sort of in that proximity and in that area. And pretty exciting because I understand that the engineering department of the city is the last person to take a look at our build permit. And once they're finished, that means that we have a build permit maybe within the next week. So we're going to be shoveling the ground by the end of August for sure, for sure, for sure. We waited a long time for this. And at about a year from then, we'll open up with 22 units of housing units again for women. Now it's called second stage housing. And so, you know, if you look at the transition house, that's first stage, 30 days. And second stage is the next step on a road to permanent housing. And so a stay there would be between 6 and 18 months approximately for women and their children. And they would, in that period of time, receive lots of supports, you know, working on things like self-esteem, perhaps helping them with budgeting, financial literacy, things about tenancy, help them build a rental history, and get them prepared to move into market housing. So it's sort of another step where we work very closely with them. We'll have a combination of studios, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units there. And that is being built with grateful thanks to the City of Port Alberni in partnership and with BC Housing, and we'll manage the contract once it's open. So this is a hugely exciting thing for us, yeah.
Why did you decide to build a new building?
Well, it's demonstrated need. I started a way back, and what I looked at was the statistics that RCMP provided to City Council about the number of domestic violence cases and sexual assaults. And then we took a look at the number of women that we had coming through our transition house. And what happened was, and what I presented to BC Housing was that the combination of the statistics from RCMP and the numbers of women that we had actually matched. It was so close. And what it showed was that, you know, if we had had the second stage housing, many of the women would have had a place to go and be safe. So, you know, and I think it wasn't just our decision. It's certainly an idea that I had and we hatched, and we've been talking about it for a long time. But BC Housing and the provincial government also recognized that there was a high need in our area as well. So I would love to say that it was only my idea, but there are many, many people working together to make sure that this happens.
Do you have anything else you would like to add?
Well, I think that people should never be afraid to come and see us, to be safe if they're curious. You know, call. We have people on site that can always help and always answer questions or help to refer. And I'm thankful to have the opportunity to be here today.
So what exactly is the Legion?
The Legion is a service club that's oriented towards veterans of the armed forces. I would say the Canadian Armed Forces, but we also help allied armed forces, be it Commonwealth Armed Forces or American Armed Forces. Basically, if you're a veteran and you need help, we are there to try and help you. We can do a lot to help Canadian veterans. It's very limited to what we can do to help veterans from other armed forces, but there are certain things that we can do, and we can provide moral support to those other veterans. But we are there, like I say, as a service club for support to veterans.
How did it get started?
After World War I, it was recognized there was a need. There was not any government supports so much for veterans. There were some grants and gratuities that were given to veterans, but it was recognized that there was a greater need for basically veterans helping veterans. People that had not been involved with the war did not understand what the veterans were going through. World War I was a very mechanical war. There was a lot of things that happened there that had never happened before. The ferocity of the battle, and the fact that there was things like the machine guns, the fact that there was poison gas used and things like this, and yet the generals were still trying to fight an 18th century or 19th century war in the 20th century. And so you had mass charges into a wall of machine guns. And it was horrific for the people that fought it. And so here they were coming home, and they had this built up inside them. And they were suffering from what then was referred to as shell shock, what we refer to now as PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And so the legions started up as a service club, and it was basically a case of veterans banding together and being together and getting a chance to band together and help one another. A lot of people got the impression, oh yes, the Legion, that's just where all the veterans go to, all the old service guys go to drink and get drunk together. Well, no, this really wasn't the idea behind it. And so this formed in around 1923, I believe, was the formation date. And we're coming up on the 100th anniversary of the Legion now. And so the whole idea was veterans helping veterans when it started. And it's grown beyond that. We have a lot other service projects that we do now nationally, some things that are being done locally. Right now, one of the big projects that's happening is helping out homeless veterans. Afghanistan was very hard on a lot of people. For some people, it was a rather brutal war. They talk about combat veterans from World War II and how they served in combat and everything like this. Well, people that were in the infantry and serving in Afghanistan, on the whole, actually saw more combat days than infantry in World War II. And people that were serving in infantry roles and patrolling in Afghanistan were actually seeing or having contact with the enemy like every time they were out on patrol. Or, you know, it was very traumatic for a lot of people. And for the numbers that we had over there, we suffered a very, very high percentage of loss and injury. And so now as the Legion, we're trying to do programs to help these people out. And so like I say, it was realized that there is a problem with homelessness with some of the veterans. We're starting to see now too higher suicide rates and things like this. So we're starting to have programs for mental health and that, starting to support programs outside of the military that provide those kind of supports and that. And the Legion are supporting those through our different programs. And, you know, it's things that we don't necessarily see here in Port Alberni because we don't have a high percentage of returning veterans to Port Alberni, but we're starting to. People are starting to realize, hey, this is a comfortable place to come back to and live here. And we're starting to see some of the Afghanistan and some of the not some of the post-war vets, some of the, what would we call them, the peacekeeping vets, some of the ones that served in between Korea and Afghanistan. We're starting to see more and more of those coming into the Legion now. And so you'll see veterans, but you don't see a big rack of medals on them because there weren't a whole lot of things going on, and not a whole lot of people came out of the armed forces with a big rack of medals. So, you know, it's a lot of different things that the Legion does.
So what are some ways that you help out homeless veterans?
Well, there's different things going on. Right now, there's Cockrell House down in Victoria, which is a group home down there. There is a push on right now to try and get another one built up here in the northern end of the island. And that's starting. It's a slow procedure, and it costs a lot to get these kind of things going. In some areas, like in Calgary, I believe it is, they've set up like a tiny house village of veterans, and that really helps. We also contribute to programs where they're going out to places where some of the veterans are living rough, and trying to get them help and trying to get them into sheltered accommodations and things like this, and just trying to get them back onto their feet. There's different programs for that. When we find out that there's a veteran in the area and maybe he's having problems, we have our service officer here in town that helps them out, be it that they need support before the social services programs fit in or kick in, or that they've just moved into the area and they don't have enough for to get themselves established in that, and he may be able to help them out until they're established and this kind of thing. We also have contacts that we can put them in touch with, sometimes being people like your father and things like this, to help tide them over until they're set up and ready to go. And then too, we have things like our Tuesday morning coffee, where some of them will come in sometimes just looking for somebody to talk to. And it's just sometimes looking for somebody familiar and somebody who understands them. And we're very lucky in our branch. We have a large percentage of veterans. And when you've been in the armed forces for a long time, or when you've been in the armed forces and seen combat, you like to be around people that have been in the similar situations.
The Legion also runs the community Remembrance Day events.
Yes, we do.
So what is involved in all that?
It's like if you've put on any large event. Have you ever tried herding cats? It's very similar to that. It goes by a script, and it's the same script every year. But the problem is quite often you have different actors every year. And so you're trying to get everything working. Well, the last 3 years, we've been on a completely new script because of COVID. And each year we've had to look at it and say what's going to be happening because of COVID. And we've had to massage it and change things slightly, either contracting it down smaller or opening it up wider because of how open the COVID protocols are. Generally, we would run it up at the Glenwood Center, and we'd have about 1,100 people up there. And the whole idea of the Remembrance Day ceremony is remembrance of those who have fallen in battle or fallen in service to Canada. And it's very, very relevant to remember these people and remember war and remember the service that they gave. Because if you don't remember these things and you don't remember the horror of these things, unfortunately, history has shown us you're doomed to repeat them. And even with people remembering them, unfortunately, there are some people that were, well, some countries, some people seem to glorify war and are doomed to repeat them again. And the whole idea of Remembrance Day is not to glorify war. It is to, like I say, remember the people, remember the sacrifice that they gave, and to hopefully remind people of the price to be paid, and hopefully remind our politicians and the people in power of those sacrifices, and hopefully not have it happen again.
That's all for this week. I'll see you next time.